Seahawks lose 29-20 to the Giants today at Lumen Field. We're live here, post-game reaction. It was an ugly one today, Bryce, but not a lot can be said. You're trying to take some positives out of it. The one positive I'll just say, we're gonna get to everything here, is they still have a chance to tie the game up and go to OT, field goal block. But we're gonna break it all down for you guys right here on the Hawk Zone Rundown on the other side.
Well, I'm the best corner in the game.
Look at this run. What a run. Get off me.
DK.
Yes, sir.
Hey, it's John Schneider with the Seattle Seahawks.
And Washington's got a lead. Leo Wilson to catch. Smith and Jimbo. The Seahawks are going to hope to get a championship.
Every year, you're going to know, is it going to be
You've
another
got to look
9
for
and 8?
players who've got to finish something.
They have to fix the offensive
Part of his
line.
success and part of
Ambition of being the LOB
One a year, that's trading DK Metcalf.
Play him aggressive.
This is the Hawk Zone Rundown with Ryan and Bryce.
Guys, you're tuning in the Hawk Zone Rundown here. We are live here after a loss. We're gonna break it all down. Before we get into it, guys, if you're watching live, you haven't subbed yet, go down, hit the subscribe button for us, hit the like button, and share the video. It helps the channel out. And guys, like always, we've been doing here, going live. Fire over your questions. We're gonna get some Q&As. We want the interaction in here. Just get the comments in here, because today was a tough one, man. Losing 29-20. Bryce, what's your instant reaction here?
This is the first time in this new era that I feel like we've been outcoached on both sides of the ball. Mike McDonald and Ryan Grubb, and even Jay Harbaugh on the special team side. I think as a whole, this coaching staff got outcoached today. It wasn't a talent deficiency on our part. I think we're a more talented team than the Giants, but we absolutely got outcoached today. The lucky thing they've got is it's a quick turnaround for this Thursday night game coming up with the Niners, but they got to do a big hard look in the mirror and figure out how do they fix what's wrong, because there's a bunch of things that are wrong right now.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, you nailed it with there's no better time to have that quick turnaround. I know it's you know, and you're not a fan of the, oh my goodness, we play Thursday night stuff, but man, when you have a performance like this, you just, as a player, you just can't wait to get back on the field and playing again. I will say this, man, there's two obvious, you and I kind of talked on before we came on air here. The first one, man, let's just dive right into it, man. Why are we not running the football?
I feel like that's going to be the biggest question this week, and in some respects, even this season. Last week against the Lions was the first time we kind of really felt, besides that second half versus the Broncos, our running game really came alive, at least for me. But seeing the fact that both of our running backs combined had 7 carries today, and we're not talking about a game that was a blowout. It wasn't like we were down 24-3, like where you have to pass to try and get yourself back in. This game at most was maybe 7 points a possession, maybe 10 points out of range. And it's like we completely abandoned the run game and Ken Walker. Like, yes, he had 7 catches for 75 yards, but they need to run the ball. This O-line cannot hold up, evident today with 7 sacks of Geno, with dropping back 40 plus times to throw it all over the field. Like, I get Ryan Grubb came from Washington and they had a great offensive line. Last year, they had the number 1 offensive line in college football, and they could drop back and let Michael Penix do his thing. There are similarities between those two, that program and what the Seahawks have talent and player-wise at the skill positions. The biggest gaping difference is the offensive line. This offensive line is going to cause so many problems for this group on offense if we keep going down this path of max throwing of 80% of our offense. Like, you have to find balance in the NFL to be successful.
Yeah, I mean the NFL is such a week to week league. Like you and I came on here about 6 days ago, and you said, "What are you feeling like as far as like after this loss in Detroit? You feeling better? You feeling what's your feelings?" And we both were like, we're feeling better. Even though we came off a loss, there was a lot of good things. This offense, like we said on our show a few days back, if this offense can be 70% of what they were against Detroit, we're gonna put up points against the Giants. They weren't that. Like you said, the big part is like the other thing about the 6 or 7 sacks is that the defense just gets to pin their ears back because there's not even a threat to run this football. So it's just like pin your ears back, go after Gino because he's gonna drop back and try to throw. Felt like 90% of the time. So that makes it even harder. But yeah, that's definitely going to be a question that's going to be posed. And listen, we understand that this is a new offensive scheme and a new coaching staff, but you still have to say what's the game plan. And we sat here for 5 weeks or 4 weeks saying this team is going to compete and they're going to come up with a game plan. I think you're right. They got out coached today. It wasn't a question of competitiveness or competing, because if whoever, if you guys watched the full game, as poorly as we played, now some of this might be the testament of the Giants, but we came down, scored a touchdown. We came down and had a chance to tie this game or even take the lead. Like that drive looked like we had a chance that we going to go down and really our focus was scoring a touchdown. Um, so it's not a question of these guys competing, but yeah, you definitely have to question Grubb and just really just ignoring the run play. And here's the thing. I understand years past when you had an Eddie Lacy or you were looking for post beast mode and you just didn't have that guy yet. Maybe not even until really Chris Carson got in this building where you're like, here's my next guy. I can really, get some do some damage here. Ken Walker is potentially a top 5 running back in this league. So you have the horses, and Zach Charbonnet is no slouch. We love our running back room, so that has to be questioned and saying what like it'll be interesting against San Francisco if we see a complete like you have to think you're gonna see more of a balanced attack, especially with that San Francisco D line. I mean that's the biggest thing, man. I mean, what do you think of it? Is it just a case of is it do you think he really is adapting to the NFL where he thinks I can get away with just being this pass happy, or is to me I'm scratching my head on it because I love the passing attack, I love our receiving core, but I love Ken Walker, and you know firsthand you got to have way more of a balance.
So the one thing that, I look at for Seattle today that I think is maybe in the analytics ways, and Blue and Green Zone actually pointed out in our chat here just now. Um, for Ryan Grubb, they're averaging about 7 to 8 yards per pass play. Like when they get a completion and they get yards with it, they're averaging about 7 to 8. So that puts you in second and short a lot of the time, or third and short. And so I can see where the wanting to keep throwing to create that number. The problem is though, and I'll go down, is when we're throwing 40 times in a game and we're only running 11. And I look at the Giants box score here and they threw 34 times and ran 34 times. And to me, you got to think too, in that rush carry total of 11 yards, and so like Seattle ran 11 times for 102 yards. 75 of those yards came from Gino on 4 rushes. We had 30 yards on 7 carries between Zach Charbonnet and Ken Walker. That is not going to get it done.
No.
Like it just isn't. And to think of the fact today, like the Giants didn't even have, and we'll get to the defense obviously, but they didn't even have their full weaponry on offense, and they were able to sustain drives. And Daniel Jones was able to throw for 245, almost complete 70% of his passes. Like you made Daniel Jones look like a relevant NFL quarterback, and he's really not.
Yeah.
That to me just shows the inability on, our offensive side to sustain drives, that you're giving that guy more bites at the apple. And the other thing too is Geno getting sacked 7 times. I don't know what it's going to take for Scott Huff and Ryan Grubb to realize you cannot do drop back 40 times and expect it to be successful with this offensive line that you've concocted in the middle. Lincoln Tomlinson and Anthony Bradford are not the answer at guard. And I don't know why, and people may disagree with me on this. I would much rather see Lamea and Haynes out there going through the growing pains of being rookies, because I can't believe there's that much of a drop off between those guys. If you were able to keep them on the roster over some of the other guys that cut down, you can't tell me Laken Tomlinson is so far and beyond Lamea, or Anthony Bradford is playing the point where he's getting 40 snaps and Bradford's only getting Bradford's getting 40 snaps and Haynes is only getting 18. That, oh yes, we want to see this constant rotation in our, like, stop feeding us the bullshit. Either they're not good enough for whatever reason, or there's some other reason you're not playing these young guys that are going to give you at least a floor close to what you've already got with Bradford and Tomlinson.
I mean, to me now, I think, you and I kind of talked about it too. First, I want to touch on the just the analytical side of things. I think, again, you and I come on here to talk about it. I think analytics there's a part of the game that analytics is important. But again, people look at it way too much. They look at statistics and analytics way too much. Like that, I'm sure that's an analytical stat that I haven't looked at. But you don't need to look at that to realize that that's not going to cut it, even if you're 7-8 yards a pass and all this kind of stuff, because that is just going to catch up to you. You're either going to be too predictable. Teams with a better pass rush are going to just pin their ears back. You have to have a balance. I mean, it's tried and true, right? Like you got to run the football. Now you could be a team that's your identity, or you can have a balance. And I feel like this team is all about having a balance. You have your backs, you have your weapons. It was sort of pick your poison. But when you go away from a weapon completely, that's when you're going to run into the problem. And as far as the offensive line, man, yeah, I mean, listen, we knew it was going to be a problem. I think, you and I said when they were 3-0 that, hey, they're winning football games. So maybe they're going to kind of see how if this chemistry molds a little bit together, they can clean some things up. We've lost 2 games in a row now. It's going to be under a microscope more. He was under duress a lot. I felt like there was 1 or 2 times even he felt that there was some pressure when there wasn't. Some phantom pressure, and that gets scary, because now he doesn't trust anything, and now he feels like every time he's getting the snap off, he has to, kind of Russell Wilson-esque, run around a little bit and get out of that pocket right away. He's not comfortable in there. He's making plays. So now that, you've lost 2, yeah, you're right. Maybe those changes could come quicker. If we don't get it done against the Niners, now you've lost, then that would be 3 in a row, going into a semi-gauntlet schedule. So that was another thing about this game, that it was not a must-win game, but it's a game that you should win. We talked about the games, the good teams beat teams they should win. That should be. That was another big concern, where you had a big opportunity to go 4-1. And I understand it's a young season, young team, coaching-wise. But this was a game where you felt like out of any game that you'd be prepared the most to say, let's go 4-1. And then you bit a bit of a buffer against the Niners coming up. To me, I feel like these guys now with Mike and the staff, not under a microscope, but it's going to be tough. Niners are still the Niners, and now we got to come in, and you could potentially face 3 in a row. Whereas you took care of business today, it would have been a 4-1. We'd be singing a different tune. So it's a week to week league, and but yeah, that was worrisome, man. Dude, listen, time of possession was we talk about the offense. It's hard to get in a rhythm as an offense when you're never on the field. And that's what was happening today with this defense. They, first of all, couldn't stop the run, and then really couldn't stop third down. So even when they stopped a few runs, it's like they're converting slant routes for first downs or whatever. What was going on, man? Touch on this defense. That was giving me some scary vibes watching them run the football today.
I think what you saw a little bit today was, again, we got some guys back from injuries. Some pieces still aren't there. Maffei's still not there. Julian Love was back in the lineup tonight, but today, I think you saw some communication breakdown for sure. Like, again, they're still learning this defense.
Right.
It took, I think it was halfway through McDonald's first year when he was the DC in Baltimore for them to fully get this defense and understand it. So,
Yeah.
like we said, when we did our quarter season grades on our last episode, it's an incomplete defense currently. Like, the grade for them is incomplete. They have moments of greatness and they have moments of holy shit. This was the most I think I've seen them with more of their guys back where I kind of went, okay, yeah, there's still some massive glaring, schematic communicational issues with this defense. And I think part of that is too for, as the NFL seasons progress, and this is one thing that slowly starts to happen, offenses start to get on the same page by week 4, week 5. They start to move, you can see it in some of these scores, Denver 34, Washington 34, Jacksonville 37 points. So you can see the scores are starting to pick up a little bit now in the NFL. And when that happens, it's because offenses are finally starting to get on the same page and they're starting to expand their playbooks. Problem for us right now with our defense is I feel like we're still learning, like they've got the base and they haven't been able to really advance. So when teams start to figure out where some of these holes are in this base version of Mike McDonald's defense, they become glaring. And Daboll's a good offensive coordinator. He showed that when he was in Buffalo. He's not he may not be the greatest head coach, but he can certainly scheme up and call a game. And I think that's what he was able to do today was he was able to find those pockets and just attack the shit out of them and press those areas. The thing that was more concerning to me, I think, today a little bit was the lack of pressure. Even though Nwosu was there, we got Big Cat back. You could tell, still wasn't at 100%. Then we lose Derek Hall in the fourth quarter.
Right.
Like, you're starting to see where I think you're going to see areas addressed in free agency next year and in the draft, and they don't have the depth in the right way it should be constructed currently because of how this roster was built for the last 2 seasons under Pete Carroll and John Schneider. Mike McDonald wants things to be a little bit different with the way he has guys on the field. And I think that's something that you're starting to see is there's just, when you get into that depth of Gotel and other guys playing or whatever it may be at certain points throughout games, Jaron Reed, Hankins, and they're having to play meaningful snaps, not just a rotational snap base, you start to see a bit of a drop off.
Yeah, no, that's the thing we talked about too. The pressure was going to be the key. Like you said, Maffei, Big Cat's back in first time. It's tough, it's tough. But I agree. I think they want to keep beefing up this D line. So I think you will see that addressed in the draft. But yeah, I think just on the defensive side, I agree. It's going to take time. Like I think this incomplete grade is going to kind of carry on for a while because you look at Mike's history and even what he did in Baltimore. It did take time. It took time, and in the first year, I think he took a last place D, almost a last place D to about middle of the pack, and then it wasn't until that next year first. So again, we're not expecting this team to be high flying, all cylinders. Yes, tackling's got to clean up. There's some things that you're like, I think it was just the total lack of unable to get off the field. And then even when they went down 99 yards and we recover the fumble, run it back 101. You felt like, okay, but they just kind of came back and did the same thing. So it was just, it's tough because you're in that situation where I think you get off that 3-0 start and everyone's like, man, this team could win. Like we can do it. We can do the division. Now we played Now we played Detroit and we had shorter turnaround. But I feel it just, you look at who the Giants were, and like you said in our preview, it was kind of, nobody on that offense really scares us. We felt like this could be a statement game. So it really, there's just, this team still has a long way to go, I think. And not that this team can't make the playoffs. Listen, here's the thing. Our division is not looking good. Like that's the one saving grace for us right now, as far as like, even if you go 3-3, you're still right there in the division. So, if people want to look at that and say, can we get in the playoffs and all this kind of stuff, that can still happen. But I just think when you look at it week by week, this team has a lot of learning to do, and still a long way to go to be that complete squad that we're looking for. So I think it's, slow down a little bit, but overall, I go back to the game planning, and I just, the one head scratcher, because we can talk about the D, but the one head scratcher is still just choosing not to run the football. I think if we look ahead a little bit to the Niners game, I'll be shocked if we don't see a quite bit of a turnaround as far as a balance is concerned. If he just decides to do that again, I'll be shocked with that.
I honestly think that there's going to be a discussion tomorrow between Mike McDonald and Ryan Grubb, or Mike McDonald and the offensive staff, on we need to find a balance. And that was the thing too, that, um, he even said in his post game was, we need to get Ken more involved in the offense. You need to have Ken Walker involved as a running threat. And that's where I talk to this point on the offensive line. Like, you have to find the right mix of guys. And if that means the younger guys give you a better run blocking, but they're a little bit more susceptible in the pass, then lean into that and help them out with play action. That's the thing. If you don't have a running game that's working or successful, you can't run play action. Gino is deadly off of play action, but we're doing a lot of this drop back stuff. Like, I get it. Ryan Grubb's a wicked wizard when it comes to concepts down the field in the vertical passing game. But there's some things about the NFL that's a little bit different than college in a way. And I'm not saying, so don't take this, listeners, don't take this, I'm saying Ryan Grubb's not a good play caller. I think he's going to be a fine play caller. He's learning. But, there is a jump in a way on talent, where when you're playing in college, you may be able to pick on a first-year freshman or sophomore guy that's still growing and turning into the football player he's going to be. The NFL, these guys are at that peak. They were all starters on their college teams most of the time, and now they're just kind of in the rotation in whatever spot they're in. So you have to be a little bit more prepared to be balanced in the NFL.
Right.
And I think that's what you saw all Sunday too, was a lot of the teams that won were able to be balanced. But speaking to one point on the defense, Ryan, that we kind of, you mentioned how we thought this was going to be a statement game. I'm going to say this, and I don't know how many people agree with me, or even if you agree with me, but this was a feeling of one of those classic Seahawk Pete Carroll games where we got beat by an inferior team and a quarterback that we shouldn't have lost the game to, but we made him look better than what he is. That's how today felt to me. It was like a flashback to when Pete Carroll was on our sideline and we would lose games to Colt McCoy with a completely untalented Cardinals team, or Kirk Cousins comes in here in 2017 and he has nobody to throw the ball to, yet he's throwing for like 250 yards, 300 yards on our defense and shredding it. Like, that's how today felt to me in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. And I think that's kind of what it was. I mean, you had like Neighbors was out, so that's your best. That really was the only Giants receiver that they've been throwing to. They also had who was the other, their running back that was out. So basically two key guys, right? Two key guys out, but it felt like it didn't matter. It felt like, they were hitting just anybody. They were using their tight ends. They were running the ball effectively. Daniel Jones was running the ball. He would get out there and run the ball, converting third downs. They were almost 50% on third down. So I think that's the thing. Like, you talk about, these guys, they got the base down. It's gonna take a while to learn, and that's all true. But there comes to a point where, man, like, we've seen it, right? It's just the deflating, running down your throat, making a guy like Daniel Jones felt like he just had control out there. Had control of the offense, had control of the game, definitely controlled the time of possession, which was huge. And it just didn't allow Gino to get in a rhythm and stay on the field and get back on the field, and not, okay, we're off the field now, we have to wait forever. Even the 99-yard drive, that they, and we were fortunate, right, that he extends and reaches, and kind of a no is a back, and this time we were able to knock the ball out and take it to the house. But that drive, man, that was majority of the quarter. I think that was 10, 9, I can't remember. It was felt forever. Felt like forever. And that was like when they were driving, you were just like, man, you just had this feeling like this is going to be the game. So I think defensive schemes alone, man, that's just something where you just have to just have some pride, and it's not about this team not trying. Like we've been praising how they're competing, but that to me is it's not a good sign, especially against the Giants team, like you said, that didn't have really anybody. And now you go in and you look and you got the Niners, and then that gets a little scarier because you're like, what's Mike gonna say here, and how are we gonna turn this thing around on the defensive side of the ball?
You know, I think for Mike, he's going to have them prepared, I think, better
Yeah,
this week. I think there was not a lapse, but I think there was a lot of trying to figure out what went wrong versus Detroit more than, hey, what are we going to do versus New York? And he's a new head coach. And, I'm just going to put a statement or a comment up here by one of our listeners. Blue and Green Zone put, some of the problems are way too high expectations for a new coach that doesn't have all his personnel. I think that is part of it. And I think the other part is you're still dealing with a brand new head coach that's still learning his coaches
yeah,
and learning how to be a head coach. I think there's going to be a really good conversation with, um, Leslie Frazier on, okay, I'm on a 2-game losing streak. How do we get out of this? What do we
yep,
need to do? And I think that's what you're going to see with the offensive identity. Hey, we got to be balanced. The 49ers are not looking like the juggernaut they usually are. They lost to the Cardinals today, 24-23. So you got two teams in here that basically the winner kind of gets the lead in the division. Seattle could go to 4-2. But I think for Seattle to do that, they have to be back to that team that's getting, 40, minutes of clock possession, and stuff like that. So it's going to be tough, but I think Mike's going to have a plan. I think they're going to attack it tomorrow. And I think you're going to see how this quick turnaround may benefit Seattle going forward, and especially in this game. But, one thing I wanted to just touch on with this, one thing that has to get fixed, and we're going to keep harping on it till it does, is this offensive line. JSN's touchdown today with 2 minutes and 10 seconds left. That pocket, like before JSN really gets into his route, is already collapsing. And Lincoln Tomlinson gets bull rushed basically back into Geno. And Geno has to make this throw falling off to his right side because he's getting hit. We've got to be able to, if we're going to throw, we got to be able to protect. But the one thing I just wonder with Seattle is, why did Ryan Grubb, did you notice this? But one thing for me was, why was he using so many 5 receiver sets inside the 10-yard line or the red zone? It just didn't make sense to me. It was kind of odd because I'm like, you should be able to have one of your running backs in there just to give the illusion of the run, not just, hey, cool, we're gonna go empty here, so
yeah.
exactly what we're doing.
Well, and then you bring up the play action as well too. When Mike, it goes for the 4th and 1 on our own 35. It was a little bit of a play action, and Brian Burns was having none of it. But why would you? I mean, what are you selling there? So, I think they said in the telecast, like, he was not buying it. Well, there was nothing to buy. We're not running the football. So it's like there was another example of just not having a balanced attack. And like you said, Geno thrives off play action, right? He really does, and our whole passing attack can with our guys. But so it'll be interesting. Like you said, I agree, man. I think there's going to be a conversation saying, listen, what's going on here with this 90-10 split of passing to running the football? We got to be more balanced, and that's for Mike to come on and sit down. I agree. I think there's gonna be a conversation with Leslie, and just to be like, hey man, like how do you deal with a 2-game losing streak? And I think, like you said, you were harping hard on how great of a hire the Leslie Frazier is for those reasons. A guy you can lean on who's been a head coach in this league, and you can say, look man, like, it's great when you're 3-0, but now you feel like there might be a little turmoil with whatever, the media, anybody, and just sit back and say, how do you deal with this? we got a short turnaround, and I think it's great that he has a guy to lean on. I agree too, man. You're coming off an emotional game against Detroit, Monday Night Football in Detroit. Sometimes that can take a lot out of you. So there's a lot of factors. Listen, we're not going to sit here and be like, man, this team's no good anymore, or this team's not a playoff team. This team has played 5 games under Mike McDonald. And like you said, he is a brand new head coach. Yes, he can get a lot of hype with this genius and what a great hire by John. And you and I still love Mike. I still think he's going to be a great head coach in this league. I think he's going to be around this team for a long time. And it's just to think, listen, shit like this is going to happen. That doesn't mean we sit back and be like, yeah, that's cool. Like, whatever. They're going to go to the drawing board. Now, if it continues week in, week out, and the thing people have to understand, and we have to understand too, like you and I said, when people were like, well, they're 3-0, they played this team and that team, so whatever. Every single team is an NFL football team, and it's any given Sunday. Now, was this a disappointing loss? Was this a game that we should win and be more prepared for? Absolutely. But is the other team coming in being prepared? Like you said, Gable, great offensive mind. Yeah. And I'm not saying that we should accept this, but we're gonna have games like this. So we have to give them some time. And yes, it'd be nice to be 4-1. It would be. And I think, listen, you go back, you have these conversations with Grubb and Leslie, and you get this thing figured out for Thursday. And it's just, what are they gonna do? How are they gonna learn from this? Like you said, let's see how this offensive attack is. Because listen, the offense looked good on Monday. So it could be, is it a hangover of just that Monday Night Football game in Detroit and you guys just left it all out there? Were you out coach? Yeah, probably a couple, all the above. But how do we get ready to go for Thursday night? That's sort of going to tell us a little more, I think.
No, I agree with you. Thursday night, you're playing truly your first divisional game. So those are ones you always have to get up for. And that's, like we said on our quarter review season show so far, the quarter way mark here, we kind of ducked into what their, upcoming schedule looks like. It's a bit of a gauntlet here. Like, the week 10 bye, a little late of a bye this year. They've got quite a bit of a gauntlet going. And I suggest everyone go back and, check that show out. It's still posted up on our YouTube channel, but it was a really good breakdown on, where this team is at this particular point. And, I look at a lot of things. Like, Gino wasn't particularly sharp today, but he wasn't horrible. The O-line was way worse. And that's kind of how it's going to be, I think, throughout this year until they figure this out. Defensively, we'll have to see the injuries. But one thing I'll say today, Trey Brown was bad. Like, he was bad, dude. And
yeah,
I would love to find a point where I can be like, yeah, but no, he was just straight up bad today. Like, could not cover, was constantly looked like he was out in no man's land and they just picked on him all day. But you know what? One other thing too that's kind of surprising, and I kind of mentioned it, I think 2 or 3 shows ago. I'm not hearing a lot of Devin Witherspoon lately. Like, I'm not feeling him in the games. I'm not hearing his name being called. Like, he's kind of just gone quiet, which there's always that sophomore slump. I just didn't expect it to happen to Devin the way that it's kind of happened over the last few weeks.
Is it more, you think he's trying to just take more in and trying to learn this system? You think that's part of it, and maybe they're using him a little differently than or you just think just hey, let's can I see a big play out of Devin? You know what I mean? Because I mean this before that turnover, they were 3 games straight with not a takeaway.
Well,
So
and that's
without
what I
that,
mean.
I would have been 4. Yeah,
Like,
is that more what you're saying opposed to, like, because it could be a combo, but I agree. I mean, we're not feeling it yet. Maybe that'll change. I mean, this Niners game would be nice if he sort of says, "Hey, here's my season debut, and I'm coming out." You know what I mean? Like, let's make a statement as a young cornerback. But yeah, you want to see a little more out of him.
Well, like, I'm just on PFF right now, but like, if I bring up, the Seahawks defensive backs and everything, I don't think Witherspoon's grading out all that great right now in Seattle. Like, if I go to the Detroit game, for example, and I look at the defense as a whole, Witherspoon graded out He graded out as a 72, not bad. But overall, like if I bring him up for the season here and I like go and look at Devin Witherspoon, like he's not grading out as what he should, considering where he's at, how we treat him in this, market, which is he's a number one corner, he's this, that, and the other. Like his coverage grades versus New England, 53. His coverage grades in Miami, 57. His highest grade was against Bo Nix in week 1.
Right.
Like, if you're a top corner, like we think he is, you should be way higher up on that with your coverage grades. Like his defense, grade in week 1 was an 85. That's awesome. That's top level player. A guy that, when you listen to all these podcasts, their best player is Devin Witherspoon.
Yeah.
New England game, he got a 60. The Miami game, he got a 54. Like, that's not top number one player. And I get people have their gripes with PFF, but still, like, those to me, this is what I mean. Like, you're not hearing Devin Witherspoon be impactful.
Yeah, I mean, I think right now the guy that stands out the most in that secondary is Julian Love. I mean, he's he's your best DB right now. Yeah, I agree, man. I mean, maybe it's a slow start. I'm chalking up to a slow start. Yeah, I mean, you would think in the next couple games, this team as a whole just isn't taking the ball away. I mean, that's the biggest thing too. I mean, if that didn't happen at the goal line, you'd be looking at 4 games. There's just none of that happening. Like you said, not a lot of pressure today. Daniel Jones really they really kept things simple. It was like run the ball, get it as manageable as he can. Gable called a pretty good game, like as far as just, not giving them chances to, come away with anything. But yeah, it's the Niners.
Here's the one thing I'll say in regards to comparing this up to Thursday night versus the Niners.
Yeah.
There's a commonality between the Giants defense and the Niners defense. And this is where it has to get fixed. We dropped back 40 times in this game, like we've alluded to throughout this episode, against a pretty talented D rush, right? Brian Burns, Thibodeau, Lawrence, like they have some dudes on that side of the ball. It's not going to get any easier versus the Niners when you got Bosa and, a bunch of the guys that they've got over there, Hargrave and all those guys coming off the edges in San Francisco. So, I'm looking at this, quote from Mike McDonald by Brady Henderson from his press conference. He goes, "We need to get Ken the ball more." And explaining why Walker only got 5 carries, he said they wanted to get Geno going early and noted they didn't have many plays in the first half 17 to get Geno going. 17 plays in the first half of a football game. That is not going to get anything going.
You couldn't get off the field, right?
You couldn't get off the field.
Yeah. Well, I agree. I mean, it's a combination, right? When the offense, to Grubb's defense, there was no rhythm. Like I mentioned, the drive when the Giants fumbled at the 1 yard line, that they were on the field for about 3/4 of that quarter, and then it's amazing we picked up the ball and scored. But now the defense is back on the field again. So, there's even more time where your offense is sitting. So then maybe that puts the pressure on Grubb saying, man, I do got to get Geno going. I got to get him feeling good, all this kind of stuff. But I think you and I still agree that, okay, I get it, but feed Ken the ball. I mean, I think you got to start with that. I think your game plan, because we've seen it now, like you and I discussed, like it hasn't just been it's been all 5 games. And like I said, in Detroit, okay, maybe your game plan was, look, these DBs are trash. Let's pick on them right off the hop. Ken's going to get his looks, but right now I want to attack him. But they've been, remember the very first quarter of the season, a disaster of a first half. But what did they do? They just dropped back and threw. I mean, that's kind of how they've been starting all these games. So it's been interesting. It hasn't been like a dose of run, like a run heavy. Like, oh, you know what? In the New England game, it was run heavy, and they were just feeding. Now, granted, Ken's been out for 2 games, but still, it's like sometimes the one thing about Pete in that era is that, you come off beast mode, and Pete's whole mantra was always run the ball, run the ball. He didn't care who he had. I mean, but Zach Charbonnet isn't a slouch. I mean, you can still you still run the ball, and I think you and I will be shocked if they don't run it quite a bit more. But I agree, man. It just doesn't help when you don't have any plays because your defense can't get you back on the field. Um, I think it's a bit of a balancing act, if you want to say, just like you want to get Gino feeling good, but I mean, there was no rhythm regardless if you tried to be pass heavy with Gino, because I mean the time of possession was just so out of whack. Yeah, I think if you look at, if people bring up stats and look at time of possessions, take 50 games and look at time of possession and tell me which team won that game. Usually the team that wins the time of possession. Usually. And it was just so out of whack that it was really tough. So, yes, you got to run the ball more. But yeah, if you look at the total amount of plays, really, really low for the Seahawks.
Yeah, and that's going to be the story of it. If this team can't get more of a balanced attack, they're going to have problems throughout the season because this defense currently, as it's constructed, is not able yet to sustain games against average to above average quarterbacks. Like, again, we lost to a average quarterback, above
Right.
average, I'd say, in Daniel Jones. We lost to Jared Goff, who's probably a top 15 quarterback. But when we play the bad ones that, struggle, Skylar Thompson, Jacoby Brissett, Bo Nix, they look a little bit better. So, they got Brock Purdy this Thursday. He's got his weapons. It'll be a tough one. So we'll have to see how it all shapes up this Thursday night.
Yeah, no, for sure. The thing is too, let me get your just looking at a couple plays. Did you like the play call when we went for it? Talking about crucial plays, talk about DK's fumble. Mike going for it at 4th and 1. Was that I don't know what the analytics say on that. We're on our own 35. It's not like the offense had been rolling. Was that a case of Mike just saying, "Man, I don't trust our defense. Like I just feel like we might not get off the field. They might just drive it down. I just gonna take a shot because like even they said on the broadcast, you don't get this. You're basically making this a 2 possession game right away, which is what happened.
I think he was trying to spark that offense to get them
Sure.
going, right? Like, I think it was I don't know if it was I don't trust my defense. I think it was holy shit, what do we have to do to get this offense going? Like, what we need to stay on the bloody field. We can't just 3-and-out and kick it away to the Giants again. They're going to eat more clock away and well of less time. Like, we have to somehow sustain a
Did you
drive.
like the play? Did you like the call?
Oh
Play
God,
call?
I hated the play call.
Right. So
I hate it.
I
Like, it
mean,
didn't make sense. You're going to run a play action at Brian Burns, who's one of the better defensive
right.
ends in the NFL, when you haven't been running the ball all day. You would have been better off
Yeah.
running a bubble screen or a jet
Yeah.
or something
Right.
like that if you wanted to try and do that than what you did. Like, it. If you're gonna fail in a game like that on 4th down and 1, do what like fail with what got you there. Like right then and
Yeah.
there, their passing game has been the one thing that's been getting them there. Then fail with that. Throw a slant or a dig route over the middle to a JSN or a DK or somebody, and they don't get it. They don't get it. Fine.
Right.
But
Right.
don't go and try and get all fucking cute and smart. And this is where that Ryan Grubb is learning still in the NFL.
Yeah.
You can't get cute and smart because in college, sure, you're going to get some dumb kid to bite on that. That's, not NFL players aren't like that. They're smarter.
No.
They're going to actually go, hey, they haven't run much today. They haven't done a very good job. So you know what? Screw that. I'm not even going to believe it. I'm going to go straight to the quarterback.
And
If I'm wrong, I'm wrong as a defensive player. But you know what? The chances are I'm probably in my favor that I'm right.
And I think what you saw too, I think what was it, Ken leaking out there? That was sort of the play, right? It was a play action. Ken
Yeah.
leaking out was going to be one of these leak out. But when you see the replay too, doesn't buy it. And here's Ken just running like Burns is just running right by him.
Yep.
And it's like you said, I'd rather be cool with a screen, set up the blocks, doesn't work, whatever, or a slant to one of your big dogs, right? But yeah, it's crazy, guys. Get your comments and questions in here on the live chat. We want to hear from you guys. We want to hear, is this a case? Hey, man, you're gonna have weeks like this when we're a brand new squad, brand new coaching staff, guys learning a new scheme. Or do you have real concerns about this squad? Because that's really the question that is on people's should be on people's mind. Are you legitimately concerned for this squad, or are you chalking up to, yeah, we have to clean things up? There has to be conversations, but guys, remember what we've been saying all offseason. It's gonna take time. We would be shocked if this team was firing on all cylinders after 5 weeks, even after 6 weeks. Where we keep saying it, where is this team going to be in November and December? Coming off a game like this, yeah, you know what? It's deflating. Like, you sit here and you're like, man, there's so many questions. The time of possession, things we've talked about last half hour. But you take a step back and say, okay, if you believe in this staff, just trust. I don't want to say trust the process, but it's kind of what it is. We're gonna go through some growing pains. You mentioned how Mike's defense, when his history, he didn't just come in and right away, boom, they're the number one. Things had to click. They brought in a couple guys that made things click as well in that defense. I just think that I don't want to be that guy that's just quick to jump, because I look back and say, hey, look, 6 days ago we were fired up about this team, even after a loss. We were confident in this team.
Honestly, I'm still fired up about this team in the direction, but we knew
Oh,
this
me
was going
too.
to be a
Yeah.
process, right?
Yeah.
So, what I'm curious about from our listeners is how many of you guys are panicking right now? How many of
Right.
you are fearful of the game coming up in 4 days here versus the Niners, that it's going to get worse before it gets better with this team? Make sure to throw your comments into the Twitter chat for the show where it's live streaming. We get those in here, as well as our YouTube channel. Make sure you throw any questions, comments you guys have in there. I'm going to put something up right on the screen right now. Just as a reminder to everyone that's watching the show, if you guys are looking to get some of the cool merch, Ryan's got a hat that he's not currently wearing but has in the past shows. Go check out our website, hawkzonerundown.com. We've got hoodies. We've got different style hats. We're going to be releasing a alternate logo on a shirt that's coming out probably in the next week or so here. So guys, get over there, have a look, check it out, and give us some feedback on it and some of the stuff you guys like and don't like. So yeah, check out our website that we got going over there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Hey, here's the thing too. You look at this team and, we talk about the growing pains. You look at this division as a whole, and I know we're talking Seahawks, but we talk about the NFC West. Team that we were really high on is last in the division right now, and that's the Rams. Like,
Yeah.
and I know they've got injuries, and, we've had injuries, and a lot of teams have it, but man, like, struggling. So, this division, you know, if you look at it as a whole and you go down the list and say, okay, where can the Seattle team is? It's tough. Everyone threw out a win prediction. I think when a lot of people were throwing out those double-digit win predictions, hey, listen, that can still happen. It's a testament of a combination of the talent we still have on this team, and things will get worked out. I don't think we talked about how he's attention to detail. He's a defensive, want to use the word genius. But he's gonna sit down and be like, look, we're gonna come out and we're gonna have a different game plan on offense, and I think we're gonna clean some things up. So I think you're gonna see things a little differently, and maybe it does take time. It's a short turnaround. That's the only thing, but I really believe that there's no better game than a game like this to get back on the field. I just really do. So I'm optimistic about Thursday night. I think that, yeah, it's going to be a tough game. Like you said, it's not like the Niners are rolling on all cylinders too. So, but yeah, I'm just looking to get back on track with a few things and just see how this team responds and comes out and does some things differently. That's the biggest thing.
Yeah, no, and I agree. So we got some comments coming in here. Blue and green zone. No panic, just not where I hoped we'd be. What were you hoping for, blue and green zone? I'm kind of curious. What did you think in these first 4 games? Like at the beginning of the year, did you expect them to be 4-1? 5-0? What were you kind of thinking there? So I'd like to know what you kind of, not saying that you're not wrong. I thought they would be 4-1 today myself. But I kind of figured there'd be some growing pains to start the year. We got
I think, yeah, no, go, yeah,
Ian
bring him in.
Victor here. I'm not panicking. I expect this. It will take time.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's what people just got to think about, because I agree. I don't think it's panic mode at all because you can't. Because I think the expectations were, listen, this is a brand new staff. Uh, I think when you go 3-0, I think, yeah, people are like, hey man, well we can win, we could beat New York, we could be 5-0, 4-1, and then I think there's some disappointment more than anything. You're saying, oh, okay, man, damn, we're 3-2, we got to play the Niners, could be a little harder than we thought. That's the NFL, man. Like, listen, we went 4-1, we'd be in a great spot going into Thursday night because if we lose that game, we're still sitting pretty good. But you got to realize, like I said early on the show, it's the NFL, man. These, like you said, you might be able to get like grub. It's a learning experience. You might be able to get away with some stuff and call like as much you want to say New York. There's nobody on this team scary. They're NFL football players and they can win football games. So,
Yep.
Daniel Jones has been in this league for a few years and it's not making excuses, but we're brand new schemes, brand new this, brand new that. And we've said it's going to take time. Um, we're Seahawks fans too. So, yeah, we want to see our team play awesome ball. And when you're coming into our house, it's the 12s are back. And you and me have stressed it. The 12s, man, it's going to mean something this year and it still is. The place was loud as hell, and I think
Yep.
it will. Thursday night will be loud as hell, no question. But so I don't think it's not panic. The place will still be loud, and yeah, because I think we will get back to a point where it will be dangerous to get to the house in our house. It's not quite there, but it will be. And I think to Ian's point, it's not panic time yet.
So here's a couple other ones from Blue and Green Zone. I'm going to throw them up throughout the thing here. So he goes, do you think the defense is struggling as a whole or individual? I think it's the whole unit as a group. I think
Yeah.
there's the way this defense works with Mike McDonald, it is a one living organism. So if there's a faulty part, it affects the whole unit as a whole rather than, oh, just our DBs, our linebackers are playing great and our D line's playing great. They all have had their struggles throughout, which has cultivated in them having this, kind of dip in performance, I think, lately. To his opinion, when I asked earlier about the panic, he goes, after 3-0, my opinion changed, but thought we should have beat the Giants. And then figured we'd lose to the Lions. Yeah, I agree. My opinion after the Lions game is I still, I thought they'd be agreed. I thought they would beat the Giants too. It's going to be interesting, this gauntlet. Me and Ryan talked about it in our quarter season review, the gauntlet that's coming up. They've got the Falcons, they've got the Bills, they've got, I believe, the Rams. They're going to have a tough gauntlet coming up here after this Niners game, so they're going to have to get right or they could find themselves out of this very quickly. And just a last question here from Blue and Green Zone. Let's say we beat the Niners. What does that mean or change for us? That's actually a really good question. If we beat the Niners, I think there is a serious chance that it could put a very different spin on how this division plays out the rest of the season. The Niners at that point would be 2-4. They would be 0-3 in the division, which is hard to overcome for tiebreakers. Just because I remember, what was it? I want to say this was mid 2000s Oakland Raiders team at the time. They had Darren McFadden. They went 8-0 in their division, or I think it was 8-0 or 6-0. I can't remember. They went undefeated in the division. But because they did so bad the rest of the way, they got their 8 wins, some division wins. They didn't make the playoffs that way, and that was winning their entire division. Then there was a flip side of it where a team didn't have, I can't remember what team it was, didn't have a great divisional record, and they were fine everywhere else, and they lost out on a tiebreaker and couldn't get in because of their divisional losses. So the division matters greatly, and if we can put a stake in the Niners and make them 0-3 with then again having to play them, so even if we split that season series, that does a lot of damage to the Niners playoff chance and division chances.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I also think it's just giving this team the confidence that, hey, what happened on Sunday, whatever, man, we move on. We have a short memory. We get right. We come in. We take care of the Niners in our house. I think it's a confidence builder if we win, and I agree. Now all of a sudden, You have control of the division. Because you can say, hey, man, this season's about learning and growing, but the goal is still to win football games, and the goal is still to make the playoffs. And if we beat the Niners, yeah, you're off to a really good start because you'll be 4-2. You got that with the Niners. Worst case scenario, now you split. So yeah, and so yeah, it matters, man, and then it just we avoid a 3-game losing streak because I think if you get to that level, I think it's gonna put a lot of pressure on Mike, especially just this young first 6 games of the season. He doesn't want that to have to deal with and then play some tough games after the Thursday nighter. So it's going to be an interesting game. I think like I was just saying earlier, I want to see what kind of balance we have on this offense, and I want to see a few different things from the defense, man. Like you said, I want to see some we need some takeaways here, man. We need to really, whether it's Spoon or whether it's whoever, man. What'd you think of Pritchett today?
Definitely still a rookie. Like you could see it. He struggled in a lot of different situations. Promising, but still struggled. So I think it'll be very, very interesting to see how that looks going forward for him and how he plays in this. I think he's got a lot of potential. I think if he plays more, he could be an answer if Trey Brown leaves in free agency as a replacement piece. So it'll be interesting to see how it all shapes up. But
I love Trey. I just think it'd be hard for me to see them signing him to any big money or even, you know what I mean. I think right now, I think that might have been a reason why we drafted a couple of young cornerbacks too, because you have Woolen, you have Spoon. Uh, Not too many teams are going to carry a lot of depth at that position with when you have to start paying guys, because after a while you'll have to pay Reek, right? When's his deal come up? So he'd
Reek, I
be
believe
because he's
he's
year
in year
he's
three,
year
so he's
three.
got one more year on his deal.
Right. So when you look at that, if you pay Trey next season, you got to think of that Reek contract, right? And if Reek has a season like he's been
Yep.
having, then you have to talk about a decent contract. So, I just think that I'd be actually surprised if Trey's still on this team. I like him. I get it. He didn't look good at all today, but I still like him. I think he's a dog. I think there's a place for him. But I think there's a reason why they went out and drafted a couple young guys. I think Pritchett could be that dude if he gets some more reps. I think on the big third down play there with Daniel Jones to get the ball back, he was blanketing him. So there was another play too. I think they took a deep shot. And he was in coverage. I think it was uncatchable. I mean, Daniel Jones threw it out too far, but so I think they like him. But yeah.
Yeah, no, it'll be interesting. But I think that wraps up tonight's show. So we've got a couple shows this week. We've got our preview show, which we will be doing and have out to you guys either Wednesday morning or Wednesday evening before the
Right.
Thursday nighter, before the Niners game, where we're going to go over the matchup with the Niners. And then following that, Friday night, we're going to do a recording with the Seahawkers podcast with Brandon Schultz and Adam Emmerich are going to be coming on our show. And we're going to be doing a podcast with them, kind of debriefing the Niners loss and then looking ahead to the following week's game. So it'll be a jam-packed episode on that Friday. So, and
Yeah.
again, after the Niners game, we'll come to you guys live with another post-game show. So after every Seahawks game this year, we'll have a live post-reaction show on our YouTube channel. So make sure you guys subscribe, click the notification button, so you're always able to jump in on those and provide your comments and questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate everyone tuning in tonight. All the comments. Yeah, tough one, but we're gonna bounce back, man. So few days we'll be back home. Lumen place will be rocking. So that's it for us tonight. Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.